Welcome to another episode of Wajood, a project launched by the Arab American Heritage Council to share the stories of Arab Americans in Flint and around the state of Michigan. I'm Zina Isa, and today I'm joined by Michael Ibrahim, the founder and musical director of the National Arab Orchestra.
A lot of people said it ain't gonna work. Nobody wants to listen to this music. طنشت.
Obviously you're Arab, and when you tell your parents I want to study music, that's not maybe the thing they want to hear.
They had a choice between that or the priesthood.
Really?
Yeah.
So that was your passion straight away. It's like, I'm doing music, I don't care, I'm doing it.
Yeah. I mean, I didn't really have people growing up in the Arab community. They'll typically have stories of my parents wanted me to do this and this, but I mean, yeah, they would say. They would have their own, quips, or they'd have their own like stories. Like all of a sudden, like I want to go into music. All of a sudden now, Channel 7 and Channel 4 and Channel 2 are all doing reports about how musicians have it hard. You know what I'm saying? But there wasn't like this phenomenal pressure to choose a specific path.
Do you have siblings?
Yeah.
And did that help you choosing this path, or maybe?
I don't think it had anything to do with it.
Nothing to do with it?
No.
Do they have like similar like artistic passions?
I mean, my sister played flute for like a year.
Okay.
In kindergarten.
That works.
Other than that, that was pretty much it.
Tell me about your first time maybe picking up the oud. Who taught you? Why did you want to pick that up over a guitar? And what made you want to stick with it?
I mean, my dad had like this oud and it looked really good. He had it as a gift.
Okay.
And I remember sometimes he would just take it out and play, and I would just look and watch. I liked the look of it and everything. And then it had this smell. I can still remember like all those old ouds like made in like the 90s and the 80s. They have this like smell to them. It's something to do with the finishing or the type of like lacquer they use. Okay. And I don't know, I was always drawn to it, and then I just wanted to do it. We went to Syria for a year. Okay. When I was 9, came back, and that's when I started oud lessons. So
when you wanted to study music, it wasn't such a surprise because you already had like a passion for musical instruments as a child.
So getting into that sound, I guess you're wondering like, how is it like a guy born here gets into like those sounds?
Yeah,
right?
Yeah, exactly.
So those sounds for me, like the love of those sounds came from like my time at the church. Okay. My dad's aunt's husband, we all called him grandfather because he was like the patriarch of the family. He was a priest. Wow. And so whenever we go to church, I still remember his voice and how he would ornament the phrases and how he would speak the words, how the syllables and the consonants and the vowels all came out. All of that stuff had a big impression on me, and that's how the sounds of Arab music really got implanted in my mind. So, that coupled with seeing my dad play the instrument and then spending time in Syria for a year, came back and they wanted me to hold on to the culture. So that's when they decided, okay, let's get him some oud lessons.
So tell me more about that, how your background as a Syrian immigrant, specifically Syrian immigrant, shaped your musical journey.
Well, I don't know if I'm an immigrant. I'm born here. My parents are. I'm first generation.
I'm also born here, but I do consider myself an immigrant.
See, that's a conversation that I think is a little bit muddied in the community. When are you American? What is American? The same thing is reflected in what is an Arab. Arabs are not identified by genealogy or DNA. It's a cultural identity. Because we're diverse. I mean, where are you from?
Iraq.
Iraq. Okay, so now you have 2,000 plus years of history, more. You got pre-Christian era, okay? You have all that history. Is that all Arab? So that's the question. So I am an Arab American. I'm born here. I'm not an immigrant because I didn't leave my home to come here. Okay?
Okay, as a Syrian.
Yeah. See, that's another thing. Like, my parents never really raised us as Syrian-centric. Yes, we were Syrian. It's part of our identity. But the bigger conversation or the bigger emphasis was on being Arab. Arab. They never talked about religion. I never knew other religions existed until like I was 10. Okay. My parents never really emphasized that in the household. I never knew that the guy that would come and have coffee and sit with our parents and have dinner with us, his kids would come over, we would go over, we'd spend the night there, they'd spend the night here. Never knew he was Muslim. It wasn't part of the conversation.
That's interesting.
Yeah. I mean, for me, those conversations were really new. And I started to notice them more when I came back from Syria, and even more so when I started my undergrad and moved out of the house. I mean, I lived on campus when I started at EMU. And that's when you start to really notice those differences. Yeah, so my upbringing is really pan-Arab.
It's very unique, especially in Dearborn.
It could be unique. I think there's people that share this idea, but they, out of comfort, they might tend to identify with specific groups and get that minute. For me, I'm more of like, you're Arab, that's enough for me. Kifak.
Yeah, exactly.
You know?
Okay. That's interesting because, especially in Dearborn, what I've experienced, I'm not from Dearborn, but the first thing I experienced coming here was even the little kids are being, like babies, are being dressed up in traditional Muslim clothing. I wouldn't say Arab clothing because it's called abaya, so you put it over your head and it covers your entire body. It's black, and these babies are wearing it and being brought to the mosque to be taught these Islamic myths.
So I don't see that as inherently Arab. I see that as a community that is holding on to one of the many religions that exist within that community. All right.
Yeah.
If we start, this is something that the Arab American community, it's almost a folly. Okay, we tend to tie the religion to the cultural conversation so much that it's borderline exclusive. If we start to equate the culture with the religion, then that takes me out of the conversation. No, I'm not Muslim. So does that make me less Arab?
Absolutely not.
Okay, so when we see that here, that's just, for me, when I see people doing that with their children, that's the same thing as when a Christian family will take their kids to church or to Sunday school, or on Palm Sunday they dress up in all white and carry candles. So for us as Arabs, we hold on to our traditions and our culture through those traditions. We don't hold on to the traditions, we hold on to our culture through the traditions. And those traditions are influenced by every little aspect of your Arab identity, from the current Arab country that you're in, because in the Arab world, borders have been drawn and redrawn millions of times. Currently, and currently as well. And so right now, with those current borders, each Arab country has its own sets of traditions, its own history. It's diverse. You're talking about 22 different countries that identify as Arab countries. Not all of them have the same, background, history, and tradition, but each have fed off each other. And we see that through the music. It's illustrated more in the music, more so than things like politics and religion.
Absolutely. So tell me, let's go back to when we were talking about the oud. Tell me about that transition from playing oud as a hobby to wanting to find the National Arab Orchestra. Why did you transition? Why did you think there was a need for that? Why didn't you just continue just playing for fun, for your own leisure?
I mean, that's more of a personal question, personal in terms of like, it has nothing to do with like a set decision, tradition or transition, and more to do with just ambition.
Sure.
You know, I wanted to, first of all, I love what I do. I love playing music. I mean, I always played oud, even when I started studying Western music in high school, and then I went to college for Western music. There's no place to really study Arab music here. You know, it started off because I love those sounds, and it has a connection to my home. And that home is those early childhood memories, going to church and listening to my grandfather, and then being at the family gatherings and everything. And then it went in, and then it turned into a source for me to find my identity as an Arab American. You know, when I got to my undergrad, there was a period of time where it's like, okay, you know, I didn't really think about this. It wasn't at the forefront of my mind. You know, I'm new in college, and I want to experience everything, and I'm playing in the orchestra, and it's like, and then I wanted to do music education. But, you know, I got back into playing oud in my undergrad, really because it was something that kind of was like a stamp on my identity. This is me. This is where I come from. Okay, I'm doing all of this, but this is also a part of my life. And then I knew that I wanted to do Arab music for a career, because I remember listening to Simon Shaheen, recordings of him, and it was the first time ever listening to music where like I would tear up. And so I was like, okay, this is where I need to be. And that's where that journey started with the orchestra. So
he was one of the people you were working under? Simon Shaheen?
No, I started studying with Johnny Sadwe.
Okay.
He lived in Detroit, between Detroit and Windsor. And I studied with him for 5 years.
Wow.
So it was just private lessons. Every week, go to his house, from the garage door down to the basement, spend about an hour, to have the lesson, come back the next week. And Johnny came from a musical family from Syria. His brother was Salim Sadwe.
Wow.
I mean, the whole family, they're all musical. His kids are all musicians. And he just recently passed away. I feel like now, like I'm alone. Almost like my musical dad is gone, you know. But you know, it was with him. And it wasn't until I met Simone after like my 4th year. I spent 8 years in my undergrad. So after like my 4th year at EMU, that's when I finally met Simone, and then I went to the music retreat that he does, the Arabic music retreat. And then I had a few lessons with him here and there, outside of the retreat. That's how I got to know Simone. But he was a huge influence on my musical path.
Okay.
Because you know, I mean, there's like Mike where he's just moving, and then there's a period of time where it's like, okay, now this is intentional movement. You know. And so he really was a huge figure in my musical upbringing, as well as Johnny.
And you have a Western Arabic fusion within the orchestra. Did he influence that at all?
So the NAO doesn't have, it fuses the thing, but the Arab orchestra, the NAO is an Arab orchestra.
Yes. For
all intents and purposes, it is a traditional Arab orchestra, regardless of the fact that most of the musicians are non-Arab, but the makeup of the group and the output we do is primarily Arab. Whether it be folkloric, classical, contemporary, or traditional, you know. And then there are times where that orchestra does things where we mix Arab music and Western music together. There's where the fusion happens.
Did your mentors have any influence?
That was my Western upbringing.
Okay.
That was my time in high school and my undergrad studying composition and really getting into Western music.
I think it's really profound that you include Western people within the Arabic orchestra, because, you know, a lot of people there may give you a lot of backlash because this is our music. We don't want people to come in and change it. We want to keep it authentic. Did you receive any backlash, and was there a discussion at all?
No, there wasn't a discussion about that. And people from the get-go, they saw that and they were like, how do you do it? You know, to speak to that, whenever I see people take that kind of a stance, you know, this is ours and why are they taking it? You know, we should be at the forefront of telling our story. And this goes back to what I've been saying for the last 7 years about playing offense versus defense. We are spending so much time defending. We aren't this, we aren't that, we don't believe this, we don't believe that. But we don't spend enough time doing things like saying this is who we are. And it's much more stronger for us as a community to tell people who we are than to say what we're not. You know, that argument comes from a position of strength more so than the latter.
Absolutely.
All right. So one of the ways we do this is by sharing who we are. We do this really freely with food and our festivals, whether they be in Dearborn or with some church or whatever, you know. But we don't do that with our culture and our art. And it's the culture and art that really provide a window into who we are. Because we sing what we preach. That's pretty much the rule of thumb with society. You sing what you preach. Your art is a reflection of your beliefs.
So tell me, like, has the orchestra lived up to the vision you had before creating it?
Absolutely. Absolutely. We started off, we built this ensemble, we've garnered support, we built the base. And when we first started the orchestra, people were like, you know, they don't want to listen to this, they want to go to midnight, they want to have their hookah and their depke and then, you know, and their food and everything. It's not the case. If you build it, they will come. If you offer it, people are going to go and see. So we built that presence. And from there, we grew. And we grew outside of Detroit. We went national. And now our work is being imported to the Arab world.
Wow.
Where we've played in Saudi Arabia and in the Emirates so far. All of this just before COVID. So, you know, yeah, the NAO has definitely lived up to what it set out to do. You know, in addition to sharing, we've also been teaching. So, you know, we have our educational programs where we've gone into schools and taught non-Arabs and Arab American kids about their heritage or about the culture. And the process is always the same. They learn something new, they have a great experience, and then you're building bridges between those people. Like one time we brought like 3 different schools. A high school from Chelsea, high schools from Dearborn, and then a high school from Detroit, the Detroit School of Art. So you got 3 different types or groups of people from different communities all together. And up till this day, from what I understand, they got little WhatsApp groups between each other.
Wow.
So, you know, I'm pretty proud of that legacy. Yeah,
leaving an impact, truly. Yeah. Especially with the youth, that's our future. So leaving an impact with them is going to carry on.
Again, if you don't share, it's going to stay where it's at.
It's very full circle that you started this orchestra here and you played in the Middle East. It's a very full circle. Can you tell me more about some memorable milestones that you've had since the inception of the orchestra?
There's so many. I like to celebrate the little things. We had there was the first concert we had in Atlanta.
Okay.
That's when we made the name change from Michigan Arab Orchestra to the National Arab Orchestra. There was the time where we won our first major grant from the Knight Foundation, which really helped us establish that educational program that we've been doing since then. So that's like that program's about, I think, 11 years now? 11 years old?
Wow.
Yeah.
Long time.
Yeah. So that got started in 2013. Our concert in Houston, where we had a show with Habir Niameh, we brought her to sing. That was a memorable experience. Saudi was definitely memorable.
Absolutely.
And there's a lot. Everything has something that really has kind of left an impression on me.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Did you face any hurdles in the beginning?
Absolutely.
Like
anybody
what?
who does nonprofits knows that there's a lot of hurdles. One of the biggest hurdles, I think, is getting people to believe, or not believe, but selling people on the idea. I don't like the word sell either, but making the case for the presence of the arts in our community, in our narrative. We don't have that here. We spend so much time talking about civil rights, political activism, religion. We don't talk enough about our arts. It doesn't have an enshrined place in our community. That has been an obstacle to get people to support that. And now, thankfully, we've been able to build that support over the last 15 years, and we're still got work to do. But it's always an uphill battle.
Does it ever end?
No, I mean, I liken my work to any imam or priest. I'm always asking for money.
Well, you tell me that there's an audience, obviously, and this audience, I've never experienced or seen an audience like this since maybe Kulthum's era in the 40s and the 50s, where the audience is clapping along insanely, like Allah, like when they hear like a beautiful sound. This is very traditional to Arab culture, but that we don't see.
So here's the thing, because we don't talk about the arts and music enough, and it's not really passed down the way it should be, people don't understand that is a built-in component to who we are and the actual execution of our art. Okay? This is part of the musical dialogue that happens. This is what makes us different than like our Western counterparts. Okay? So the reason why you haven't seen it is because there's no context for it. I mean, before the NAO, to see an orchestra like that, of that size and of that quality in this country, really doesn't exist.
Exactly.
There have been other groups that have done these things, but the way the NAO has worked, where it's consistently done concert after concert, and the format and the way things are done, and then the emphasis on the quality, that's one thing I really take pride in. What we do is, like, our group is second to none in the Western Hemisphere. I stand by that word.
I agree.
Yeah. So when you offer it, then you get to really get a measure of where the gaps are in our community. I didn't have to do much but just show up.
Really?
Yeah. That's all we had to do was show up. Hey, we have a show. People come. You don't know about it? Then that's where the grassroots work goes in. You know, calling people, putting ads here, doing all those little things. And we still have some work to do with that, but it's, that's where I really believe that if you build it, they will come. If you offer it, people are going to take you up on that opportunity.
You preserve this traditional Arabic sound so well. Can you tell me about the impact that the audience leaves with after experiencing essentially like a time capsule of the olden days?
I can tell you about a recent experience. I have a student, and his parents came to the orchestra this past April for the first time, and they've been invited before, and so they thought that it was going to be a dreadful experience. Because normally when people think about orchestras, they think, you know, stuffiness. People want to have fun. This is our culture. If you look at how our kids are hanging out and going out to like little party zones in the community, we like to have fun. We like to enjoy things. So people, and that comes out in our concerts. You know, you get to really see Arabs for who they are when you see them at our concerts. And so she came to the concert, or they came to the concert. It was a couple, and they were blown away. And that's typically always what happens. People come in, they don't know what to expect, and then by the time the show is over, they are like in a state of elation.
They want to come back.
Yeah, not just come back, but that feeling. Exactly. That's a really integral part of our music too, is having that feeling. Okay, we call it tarab.
Yep.
People think of it as like just specific music. That's not true. It is an actual feeling, or it's a consequence of the performance of any of this music. So that's what makes us different from most Arab groups across the board, is that we preserve this idea and this communal exercise of tarab in the music, where people come in and then they leave with that state of elation. Sultana.
I've actually studied tarab, and it's so beautiful, and I haven't seen anything like it in this time, in this era, this generation. So that's why I'm so compelled to bring this up with you, because it's profound what you're bringing as a music director. Can you tell me a little bit about your role as a music director and the rehearsals, what you try? What are the key elements that you focus on during these rehearsals?
I don't go in with a plan.
Okay.
So I usually just show up, and then I just woodshed the work. The term I use is woodshedding. You know, I got this product, now I got to refine it.
Okay.
And that's pretty much what I do. The tarab happens in, it's not an intentional thing. You can't like say, I'm going to play these notes and that's going to make this happen. It happens from a bunch of different things. First of all, the audience has to be engaged. Okay? That's a huge component, because we feed off that energy. So there is this unseen like aspect that goes on at a concert. You know, you can call it source, universe, energy, vibe, whatever you want to say. You know, the Holy Spirit. You know, but the point is that there's something that happens that promotes this state or this exercise of tarab. And so all we have to do is play the music well and make sure we connect, and then have the audience be engaged.
So you wing it, essentially.
Yeah, I mean, whenever we work, the atmosphere in the orchestra is it's intense. Going to rehearsals, we got 6 hours of playing a day. That's not including the breaks. And it's just repeat, blend, fix, balance, let's try this. You know, that's busy work. All right. But by the time we get to the show, the music is ready for us to be able to focus on just playing and making music. That unseen level of musicianship. Absolutely.
Earlier you said that our generation right now is mostly focused on social justice movements and whatnot. But obviously I think your music has used music to address these social issues. Can you maybe talk about how you've fostered that within the community engagement?
I'm not a real activist, and I never really pretend to be one. Okay? My contribution to that part of our conversation within the community is the fact that the NAO is providing a platform to tell our story. And that story that we talk about is, we are a diverse group of people, and we have thousands of years of culture and contributions. And that alone gives way to another conversation about, well, what about this? And then I'll let the experts talk about the rest of the other stuff.
Okay.
That's, the only thing I've done in recent memory, or the only real political action I took in terms of using my platform for that, was doing Zahrat al-Madain at the last concert. And people who know me, they know that I rarely ever talk about my opinion in public. I very rarely ever make political statements through my work. But, you know, with the recent happenings in the Arab world, you can't help but be moved, because it is it is part of our Arab identity to look out for each other.
For our Arabic speakers listening, could you maybe translate what that piece of music means in English?
Zaharat al-Mada'in is a piece written for Palestine, and it was written, I'm not exactly sure, but it was written like when the conflict was still fresh. And Zaharat al-Mada'in, I think it's flower of the city, or flower of the cities, or flower of cities. I'm very bad with my transliterations.
Yeah.
But so it was written for that, and that was like the most political thing I've ever done through the course of my work, was doing that. So,
but you do initiatives and programs with NAO to uplift the local Arab community.
Yeah, you do that by. The NAO accomplishes that by a couple of things. Number one, whenever we have a chance to share a part of our culture with our neighbors, it's a chance to let them get to know who we are. Okay, so we provide that opportunity by just doing the shows and keeping it open for everyone. We also give an opportunity for Arab American kids to be able to engage in their culture. I didn't have that opportunity. There wasn't a place where I can go to learn music. I had to go find a teacher and then go and schlep out to his house every week for, to take a lesson. So when we give that opportunity for kids and they actually participate in that, it's a chance for them to partake in a cultural exercise, and that in turn gives them pride in who they are. It gives them a little bit of a sense of anchoring in their identity.
الأوركسترا الوطنية العربية مهمة لإلي لأنه بتوصلني ببيتي وبلغتي، وإن يكون عندي هاي الفرصة إني أغني باللغة تبعتي بهاي البلد اللي هي غريبة، هو إشي اللي أنا كتير فخورة فيه ومبسوطة إني وصلت له.
It's been a dream. From me coming from Lebanon to here, it's been a dream. Even my teacher, when he knew there's the National Arab Orchestra, he's like, "Oh, Farah, come on, let's go."
So these are the types of ways that we uplift the community. We build pride. A lot of Arabs. I remember, after 9/11, we stayed home for about a week because my parents were afraid.
Even in Michigan?
In Sterling Heights. We grew up in Sterling Heights before the wave of immigration to that city happened.
Okay.
So we were one of the very few Arabs that lived in that town, and I mean, I was really lucky. People in that community, they were very loving and caring, and they went out of their way to say, "Hey, look, this is your home." So, but a lot of Arabs weren't that fortunate at the same time. I mean, they had to deal with the uphill battle of having to defend the actions of people that have nothing to do with the essence of a religion, or they have to defend an entire culture on their back, and that's a huge, that's a huge undertaking for one person to do.
Absolutely.
So our community had to deal with a sense of just, our ego took a hit. We started to be afraid to be who we are, and the NAO, through our work, we've been able to be a source of pride for the community.
And that's very rewarding.
Yeah, it's good. I mean, it's a good thing. I don't. It's more wajib than anything.
Really?
It's more wajib. For us artists, we don't have the luxury of just being able to do art for art. As much as I push and kick against that grain, or that tendency, it's built in for us as artists to have to wear a second mantle on top of that. So we do. There are things that I feel are important for us to do because we're ambassadors of our culture. It's I use the word burden, not in the way that it's not an unwelcome burden.
I see.
It is an extra thing that we have to think about in the course of our work, but it's not unwelcome. It's something that we should do for our identity as Arabs.
I see. So wajib meaning your duty.
Yeah.
So through your duty, what do you feel was the most rewarding aspect of your wajib or duty thus far?
Again, too many to count. I mean, look, I have a lot of pride in the work the NAO has done because we've been able to shed a light on the culture and have had a hand in changing the narrative. And the reason why we've done that is because you can argue about religion, you can argue about politics, you can even argue about where hummus and falafel come from, okay? But you cannot argue about something that you enjoy. And most people enjoy music, and that's something that brings people together. And if I were to really be proud of one thing, it's the fact that I've been able to bring our people together, because that's like kind of a personal thing for me. I want to bring people together. I want to share a part of my culture and my own life with those around me. And I don't feel like there should be anything keeping me from my Arab brother. It's as simple as that.
What kind of legacy do you want to leave behind?
Talk to me in 20 years.
Really?
Yeah.
20 years?
It's too early. I'm still in the thick of it. I'm still working.
What are your hopes for the future of Arabic music?
I mean, we need to see this. The NAO needs to be at the forefront of passing this heritage down to the next generation. The only way you can do that is by teaching it and creating a system where kids can go in, study, and then if they want to continue, they can continue, and then they can continue their studies so that they can actually produce something, not just play the classics, but build new art. Throughout the history of music in the Western world, all innovations in music are built upon the premise of what came before. That's tradition. And we can't expect to build anything of substance if we're not preserving our heritage.
Okay, you talk about preserving your heritage. Is there an evolution within that?
So the evolution happens after the preservation. You have to have something to build on. Okay? So like, for example, in the West, you had music from the Renaissance period. Until now, that music is still being played. And then came classical, Baroque, classical, etc., etc. So now you have these layers upon layers of traditions in Western music that are continuously performed and taught. We don't really have that. Definitely not here. We don't have that in an institutionalized fashion. The NAO is building that, and that's where we're going, but it's we're not there yet. So in order for us to have that evolution, like right now, we can say, oh, but there's a lot of our music is found in Western music. Yeah, that's fine. Most of that's been initiated by non-Arabs taking something they've heard they liked. A lot of rock groups that used to listen to Kulthum on blast before they go to shows. Yeah. So I mean, that's how much there's like give and take, but we don't know that. We don't know that because there's no way to really read about it. There's no way to really find that out unless you're a super music nerd and you start to read all the or listen to all the podcasts and do all the things you do for your favorite Game of Thrones shows. You know, so you know, it's really important to have a base to build off, so that when we do create new art form in this country, that is truly Arab in nature, it's built off that foundation.
I understand. I know you're in the thick of it. But for the younger generation, what advice would you have for the aspiring musicians to carry on the legacy of Arabic music?
Aspiring musicians?
Yes.
A lot. I mean...
do you have anything that you wish someone told you before starting?
I mean, I made a lot of mistakes in my life, so I've heard a lot of things. I guess I would say, don't be afraid to get back up after you make a mistake. Don't be afraid to make that mistake. And then don't be afraid to say that I made a mistake and I'm learning from it. Because really the canvas is blank when it comes to this industry. There isn't a real set path for people like me. So you're going to have a period of time where you're figuring out a lot.
What other ways have you shared this culture besides performing?
In addition to just having the concerts and doing the educational program, we've done collaborations.
Okay.
So sometimes I'll do collaborations with non-Arab musicians that don't play Arab music. Their background is entirely in Western music. And then other times we do collaborations with other groups. So I'm really excited about this collaboration we have with the Flint Symphony for a few reasons. The concert coming up in September of this year, we're going to be doing a program that's never been done before. There's a gap in the Western music world where Arab music is underrepresented. And normally when Western orchestras want to play Arab music, they'll get some kind of arrangement done by a non-Arab, and then so the essence of it doesn't really come out. The execution, there's something missing, right? This time, we're combining our small little chamber group, the Techt Ensemble, with the Flint Symphony Orchestra. We got the entire program of Arab music, like real hardcore Arab music, like Esmahan, Wadi al-Safi, Farid al-Atrash, all these done with the Western orchestra. So that is something that's very new, and it hasn't really been done before. It's gonna like kind of break a glass ceiling in the Western orchestral world.
That's very exciting.
Yeah, I'm very excited about
Do you think it's going to set a trend?
Hopefully. I mean, if anything, we can speak to, because I know that in the music industry in the West, we talk about representation of our people. We want representation for us as a society in all facets of American life, because we are American, right? And so we want to show who we are. That extends also to the music industry. So it'll at least open the door for that conversation to start taking place within the Western orchestral world, because it's been done. It's being done. It is done.
Absolutely. Yeah. So it's in September.
Yeah.
Wow. And you guys are practicing right now, getting ready?
No, 2 days before the show. That's it. That's all you need.
That's all you need. You guys are professionals. Yeah. Okay, thank you, Michael, so much for sitting with me and answering these questions. I really enjoyed our conversation, learning more about the orchestra and your background.
Thank you
so much.
I should practice more. For the non-Arab, I hope they take away an understanding of who we are. I hope I take away a little bit of their fear, a little bit of that misinformation that they're so used to getting. For the Arabs, I hope they take away more of an understanding of who they are, and they take away some pride, because there's a lot to be proud of.
Join us next time as we continue to explore the personal journeys of our guests and engage in conversations around advocacy, our identity, and community.